Just talking about this. This is Texas Tech head coach Joey McGuire taking a shot at Notre Dame while trying to hype up the team that he just beat in BYU from over this weekend.
I have so much respect for BYU. I do, man. They're I was really excited whenever they joined the Big 12 because I think that they carry a lot of weight and a lot of respect. I think that I have a lot of respect for them entering a conference and not playing an independent schedule like other people. Y'all already know who that is. And so I have a lot of respect for that. I mean, they're earning their right just like everybody but a couple of people in the nation are earning their right through conference play, and playing in some really tough places.
You can check out betonline.ag for updated college football playoff, Heisman, and college football week 12 lines. Let's go out to the hotline right now and welcome in one of the best voices in the business covering college football, and that is our guy, Danny Kanell. Danny, what's happening?
I am clapping for Joey McGuire. What's up, Zach?
Well, you're wrong. You're wrong. I love Joey McGuire. But, it's not as if Notre Dame's not playing anybody. It's like Texas Tech, they play Arkansas Pine Bluff this year when Notre Dame opened up the season with Miami and then followed up by A&M. Come on.
So my thing, not cheering the schedule, cheering about him trying to pressure them to join a conference. That's why I'm cheering, because you know who I want him to join? I want him to join the ACC, because that potentially could save the ACC from probably disbanding, which is probably going to happen in the next 5 to 7 years, right? The ACC, I don't know how they survive the big picture of where the sport is moving. If the Notre Dame would come to the ACC, I think that could be that brand that they've been so desperately seeking for so long since Oklahoma and Texas went to the SEC. Here is the thing, though, and Notre Dame fans, they think I hate them. I get that all the time, like, oh, you hate Notre Dame. No, I want you to come to the ACC.
I hear you hate Notre Dame, by the way. You despise them.
Here's why I hate them. Here's why I hate them. Because they can do it, because they're Notre Dame. Like, they get away with it because there's no penalty to be independent. Like, they still have access to the college football playoff, which we saw last year, because they had there was only one loss, but they had an ugly loss to Northern Illinois, and they still got in. Then not only do they have access to the playoffs, they have one of the best systems going because they can keep all the money to themselves. So when Ohio State wins a title, and I think they got $20 million, they have to divvy it up between the whole Big Ten. Notre Dame gets the whole check. They get every bit of it because they're independent, but they can get away with it. They have multiple TV deals. It's because of their brand. So deep down inside, I'm probably jealous that Notre Dame can do that, and that's just the reality of the situation.
And this is the ironic part. I have a lot of respect for the way that the Big 12 saved their conference, unlike the Pac-12. I have a lot of respect for Joey McGuire, knowing his story. With that being said, I would have loved to have been in that media room yesterday, and I would have loved to have said to Joey McGuire, hey, if you could be Notre Dame and be an independent and have an easy path into the playoff each and every year, you take it in a second instead of probably being in what most years is a one-bid league where maybe, just maybe, if all hell breaks loose, you could get 2 bids in from the Big 12.
Yes, no doubt about it. He probably would definitely would, because not only does Notre Dame have access, they get a bye every year. They don't have to play in a conference championship game. There is a likelihood that is not crazy that these two teams, Texas Tech and Notre Dame, could meet in the playoffs. You talk about adding some spice to that one. That would be made for, like, if there was a script of college football, that's what I would be trying to script right now, as a Texas Tech Notre Dame matchup in the first round of the playoff, and it actually could happen. So we'll see how that works out, but it's definitely a hot topic for sure.
And not only that, I think it would be great for the sport. But remember last year, like, Franklin was basically holding his nose up high about, where they're at and how Notre Dame should join a conference, and then Notre Dame beat Penn State. I would probably, right now, if you said, without the comments, Texas Tech plays Notre Dame, I take Texas Tech. After those comments from Joey McGuire, I wouldn't bet against Marcus Freeman if they met in the first round of the playoffs. And I would love for that to be in Notre Dame, because all those nice Notre Dame fans would turn into a bunch of a-holes.
Oh, yeah, they definitely would. I hear from them all the time. My favorite part of it, though, is Marcus Freeman was asked about it. He did not take the bait. He just said, all I'm focused on is beating Pitt, which apparently that is not what Pat Narduzzi is focused on, beating Notre Dame. And his comments, which for some reason he put out there, he doesn't care if they get blown out 110-10. He doesn't care because it doesn't matter. He wants to win the ACC, which is a very interesting mental mindset going into a game where you have College game day in your backyard it's a huge opportunity for your school. You're a really good football team. And you're like, it's not that big a deal. We don't need to win this one. We want to win the next two. I've never heard a coach with that approach. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for Pat Narduzzi. It was just kind of out of pocket. Like, I don't know where it came from. And I don't know why he made it. Maybe he's trying to do some mental mind games with Notre Dame to get them thinking they just have to waltz in and show up. But that was one of the more intriguing comments I heard from yesterday as well.
Danny Kanell here with us. So for Notre Dame, I think this is their last regular season test. And I thought going into the year, Pitt was criminally underrated with 2 All-Americans, right? Then they had the quarterback change. Now they're starting to put lipstick on the pig and save their season. They're still alive in the ACC. But if you look at Notre Dame, you win this game, you'll beat Syracuse, you'll beat Stanford, you'll be back in the college football playoff. How much of upset alert should Notre Dame be on for this upcoming weekend?
I mean, they are, 11.5-point favorite. So I don't think the odds makers are too worried about them. But this is a team. So Pitt's a little bit banged up on defense, but they are coming off a bye. So, I do feel pretty good about them. And if I was Pat Narduzzi, I would be pointing out what you just mentioned. I would be telling people, because we're able to do this with a committee. They are undefeated since they made the change to Mason Heichel, and he has been a difference maker. The guy, I saw him against Florida State. He threw 300 yards and looked like a seasoned veteran. For just a freshman to be doing that is phenomenal. But, yes, I think, the one place in college football that has been interesting is usually on the road are those spots. Like, this is at Pitt. It will be a crowd that will be pretty loud. I wish it was at prime time. It's only at noon, so that's kind of diminishes that a little bit. But I would say there's, a 65% chance that Pitt could pull off this upset if they play clean. And the one thing that we don't really know is, because Notre Dame has been blowing through these opponents, this will be one of the best teams they've faced since the other 2 that they played, which they lost to. That's the one thing that bothers me about Notre Dame is they lost their first 2 games of the season. They were 0-2. They come in ranked at 0-2. By the way, the AP ranked them even though they were 0-2 because they were so enamored with the losses. And I think that if I'm Mario Cristobal and if I'm Miami, I am pounding the table saying, well, we only lost 2 games. We have won all our other games. And if you just had lost those 2 at the beginning of the season, you'd be saying we've won all these games in a row. To me, the calendar is one thing that is definitely going against Miami. But you mentioned Notre Dame in the playoffs. If they go 10-2, there is a scenario if Miami can close that gap enough, and we'll see tonight if they're able to close, because they were 8 spots away from Notre Dame in the initial one. And the reason they were so far away and couldn't jump Notre Dame is because they weren't even in the same vicinity. If they get in the same pool of 3 teams, I do wonder what the committee will do with that head-to-head, because they're supposed to honor head-to-head in the regular season, where Miami could make a pretty strong case. They have to win out, but if they win out as well, and by the way, they'll have a common opponent because Miami still plays Pitt in Pittsburgh on the same field. If they beat Pitt by more than Notre Dame does, I think you've got a pretty compelling case to say, all right, if you want Notre Dame in, fine, but you have to take us too from the ACC. So there's still some intriguing storylines to unfold here in the final 3 weeks of the college football season.
If I follow social media correctly, Danny Kanell, G5 hater, by the way, in Danny Kanell. Let me ask you, because you're the expert on the G5 from everything that I see on social media. Do you think it's USF's spot tonight because of that head-to-head argument where they would beat out North Texas because they beat them by 20-something points?
Yes, and I have always been a Group of 5 fan. In fact, in 2017, I was leading the charge for UCF to get an opportunity. They were undefeated. They were right there. They beat Auburn in the bowl game. It was a team that had beaten Alabama. I was totally fine with them being co-national champions. I thought they should have gotten a spot. But it's only because they were undefeated and I felt like they were worthy. I don't think it makes much sense to guarantee a Group of 5 spot every single year in the college football playoff. This year's a good example of where I think my argument is going to get more noise if it is USF, because USF would have 2 losses. And guess who one of those losses would be to?
Miami.
We were just talking about Miami, a team that they lost to 49-12, and you could have South Florida in the playoff, Miami sitting at home watching with the identical record against a tougher schedule, and it's like, what are we doing? But here's my out, because I also think, so I think they should have to be ranked top 16, top 15, somewhere at least close. Like we saw last week, it was so weird because Memphis NR not ranked next to their name, but they had to put one of them in. That's the other thing. USF, they might not be ranked. They might just be the highest ranked, so they might be NR in front of their name, or it's 25. Here's where I think the caveat comes in, where I think I have a little bit of support. Do you realize Duke could win the ACC? They're still right there because their 4 losses are all non-conference. 3 of their losses are non-conference. So there's still 1 loss. They're atop the ACC ratings. If Duke wins the ACC with 4 losses, I would say the same thing to Duke.
Sure.
Sorry, you're not ranked in the top 16. You're not even close to the top 12. Thanks for coming, but you haven't earned a spot. So it's not just the group of 5. I mean, clearly that's the one that probably has the most issue with it. But, like, if USF doesn't win, then it goes to James Madison because they could win the Sun Belt. They've only played 1 Power 4 school, and they lost to Louisville by 2 touchdowns. It's just – so, like, it comes up because I think it'll be the group of 5, but I would say it would be any conference. If you're not ranked in the top 16, let's just use that number arbitrarily. I mean, you could say top 12 if you really wanted to get – but then you'd have a Big Ten SEC, invitational, which it kind of already is. But that would be, like, I think that's a criteria you could put in to protect yourself from having some of these 4-loss, Power 4 teams or 2-loss group of 4 teams.
Danny Kanell here with us. So I have an Alabama future. I took them to win the national championship, only future I made before the season started. With that being said, they've been awesome ever since losing to Florida State right out of the gate. They play Oklahoma this week. I'm not a believer in Oklahoma, but I look at the spread and I'm like, Alabama's only a 6.5-point favorite. Is Oklahoma alive this weekend to pull off the upset against the Crimson Tide? Because I'm feeling that this game's going to be closer than what people think.
So I'm not that concerned. I'm with you. Now, here's the thing that is interesting, is Oklahoma's defense could make this competitive. Their defense is really good. R. Mason Thomas, we saw what he did at Tennessee a couple weeks ago. He had the strip sack and the fumble return for a touchdown. If that happens, this will be a game because Alabama's offensive line has been a little bit of a liability, and they have not been able to run the football. But the other thing is I don't trust Oklahoma's offense. Like, John Mateer was the hot name, and he came in there and he beat Michigan. Man, then he had the thumb surgery, and they were ready to put up the statue of the doctor because he came rushing back after 17 days. You haven't heard much about that doctor since then because he's been squirrely. But here's the thing. Against the game against Michigan, he had multiple passes that should have been intercepted. They just didn't get caught. Like, they were just – he kind of got lucky. He's a little bit too much of a loose cannon for me. He is not great. Even in the game against Tennessee, he really didn't play that great. So I think Bama should be able to have their way. I think Ty Simpson is playing as good as anybody. I think he'll find a way to put up some points. So I actually feel pretty good about Alabama against Oklahoma this weekend. As long as it's under that touchdown, I think they will win by a touchdown or more.
Texas and Georgia, what do we see from Arch and Sark this weekend in their last stand?
So this is another one, and I don't like backing all these favorites in college football because we see so many upsets, but these 2 home favorites I actually feel pretty good about because I almost feel like the teams they're going against have been a little bit overhyped, right? Like, where everyone's real excited, and I am too, because I feel like I've gotten on the Arch Manning train and taken a ride or a roller coaster, and I feel like I've played it pretty well. Because the beginning of the season, I was like, I don't see it. Like, I don't think they're going to be national champions. I said, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. And then, of course, they lose a couple, and I'm like, thank goodness I didn't ride that. But I said, after he lost to Florida, I was like, don't give up on him yet because he's got to figure things out. And then he's been playing better. And so all of a sudden, he's playing better. But this is a team still that was taken to overtime by Kentucky. They had to come back from 24 down to Mississippi State, who's not very good. And as much as we love the Vanderbilt story, that was a pretty comfortable win that they did win, but they almost blew the lead. Like, this is a bump up in competition and a bump up in a defense that Kirby Smart will have ready to go for Arch Manning in Athens, which is one of the toughest places to play in all of college football. I think this could be a game where Arch struggles again. Like, and it's like, what do we do? Which I think will be completely normal. Like, I think the time to really get after Texas and buy them as a national championship contender is coming into next season. I think they're just a year early. The expectations were way too high, but I do think this will be a night he could struggle some. But even saying that, the most surprising stat of any of them is Georgia is last in the SEC in sacks. They just don't pressure the passer. They only have 11 on the season, and they had 3 this past weekend against Mississippi State. Like, But I still think they'll be able to pressure Arch, make him uncomfortable with some coverages. I think the receivers will be a little bit tighter covered. So I still think it could be a long night for Arch. So I like the home favorites there too.
Danny Kanell, if you had to take a stab at it, who's coaching your Seminoles next year?
Am I allowed to say Mike Norvell, or do you not want me to say that?
You can. I don't think he's coming back. I think they're getting rid of him.
I think we're just stuck with him. Like, I really do. And I don't like saying that because I have a tremendous amount of respect for him, and I like him. I root for him. But you know better than anybody, it's a bottom-line business. And speaking of the bottom line, that's the issue Florida State has now because we don't have $50 million sitting around or a billionaire booster that's willing to cut a check. So I think as much as the fan base would like to see a change, and a lot of people would say we need a new direction, it's been 7 years. I mean, it's been a long time. I just don't know if Florida State has the appetite to swallow that pill. Now, if they lose out, which, you know, they play Virginia Tech, they should win that one. I think the Gator game probably is big because that's one you should, you know, that line will be fascinating, though, because it's probably around to pick them. Florida might even be favored. But let's say they finish 2-2 to finish the season, which that includes the loss to Clemson, and they're 6-6. I mean, that's a rough look, but I think it'll be just, you know what? It is what it is. You know, I think it's just they just are not in a great situation financially.
Let's say you're a team like the Jets, and you could draft a quarterback in this upcoming draft in April, and you have Mendoza right there, Dante Moore, Ty Simpson. Who would be the guy that you would want the most if you're an NFL team hungry for a QB in this draft?
Well, I'm a Dolphins fan, and I've been trying to tell the Dolphins to flop for Fernando. That's what I want to see. I want to see them flop to the finish so they get a better pick so they could take Fernando Mendoza. I do think he's a step above the rest. I think Ty Simpson is playing himself into a late first-round pick, so it kind of depends on where you go. Like, I don't know if I would reach on Ty Simpson in the top 10, although that's what everybody does. Recent history is reach for quarterback, so maybe he plays himself into that. And Dante Moore, I think Dante Moore needs another year of school. Like, I'd be a little bit nervous about selecting Dante Moore. He has first-round talent written all over him, and the throw that he made to Malik Benson, that he threaded the needle, like, perfectly, and that drive was really impressive. But he's still been a little bit inconsistent. And by the way, Oregon can probably make him the highest paid if Arch Manning isn't at Texas. Like, he can make $6 million, $8 million in college next year. What's the rush? Go back, really secure yourself as a top 3 pick and potentially win a national championship at Oregon. So I think you got the right order. But I think for me, it would be Fernando Mendoza first, Ty Simpson if I had a later, you know, back end or second half of the first round, and Dante Moore. And now if he finishes strong and they beat Washington, they beat USC, and he just lights it up, I could change my tune. I just feel like he needs another year.
You should make a T-shirt, flop for Fernando. I haven't heard that one yet. That's pretty good.
I know. I thought so too. And it's the fish, like the Miami Dolphins are fish. You know, I need to sell that thing down
You
in
make
Miami.
that T-shirt. You could maybe, and I like Mike Norvell, you could maybe afford his buyout, though.
That's right.
Last thing for you, the Lane train. Is it staying in Oxford, Mississippi, or is it going to Baton Rouge?
I think it's impossible to figure out Lane Kiffin. My hunch tells me he's staying. I think he likes being the center of the conversation right now. In fact, yesterday, he's been asked more about it, and he just doesn't. Like Brent Key at Georgia Tech, I don't know if you saw his comments.
He
was like, cut me open and see what color I bleed. Like, their Georgia Tech fans are like, we don't even have to give him a raise. He's not going anywhere. And Lane just always kind of dances around, and he doesn't say much. I watched the documentary on him that ESPN did. It was phenomenal. I feel like he's happy. I feel like he's putting a priority on happiness now with his family. But I still wouldn't be shocked if he's in Gainesville or if he's in Baton Rouge. But if I was betting, I wouldn't put a lot, but I would say he's going to stay at Ole Miss.
He is Danny Kanell. You can check out betonline.ag for updated college football playoff, Heisman, and college football week 12 lines. Danny, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Zach. Have a good one.